Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending our traffic council meeting for today, March 13th. My name is David Kozis. I am the transportation coordinator for the Public Works Department. I'll just begin by quickly introducing the voting members of traffic council. We have myself, Captain Devine from the Traffic Bureau, Adrian Ayala, our traffic engineer. We have our citizen representative, Mitch Fishman. I don't see a counselor that will be voting right now. We might be joined by our fifth voting member, Counselor Downs. I also see Danielle Delaney, our committee clerk, Jeannie Fairley, our ADA coordinator, and I also see Counselor Lucas from Ward 2 at the beginning of the meeting. So we will begin with the first item. So our first item is AP 225. Aaron Fryer requesting one additional accessible parking space totaling 2 in front of Trinity Church at 11 Homer Street. The Newton Commission on Disability heard this request at their March 10th meeting, and they voted 10-0 to recommend approval of the additional parking space. So we'll just have a quick presentation, and then we can open it up for public comment. This is the location that we'll be talking about on Homer Street near Center Street, near the Trinity Episcopal Church. Here is a photo of what's there now. We have just, you could see the sign with one accessible parking sign and then a 2-hour limit behind it. So it's not very, very clear where, it seems to me that there's one parking space there right now. And so the request is to add an additional parking space. So that is actually our recommendation, to add a second accessible parking space, leave the first one where it is now, and then 20 feet further to the west, add a second accessible parking space sign, and then relocate that 2-hour parking sign on that new post, so that we would end up really with 20 feet of no parking from Center Street's in the foreground. So we would have 40 feet of no parking, and then 2 20-foot accessible spaces, and then the beginning of the 2-hour limit. So that is our recommendation. We have the language in front of us to be able to vote on this today. This will be TPR 975. So that's the presentation for this item. I'll open it up now to public comment. If anyone from the public would like to speak on this item, if you could just raise your hand and we'll call on you. Jean. Go ahead, Jean.
Hi. Thank you, David and Traffic Council. Yes, Mr. Fryer let me know that he couldn't come tonight to represent the Trinity Church. I'm not representing them, but I am representing the Commission on Disability. And they had very few questions for Mr. Fryer. I guess sometimes one of the places that isn't an accessible space kind of looked like one, because there was a sign directing folks to their accessible ramp into the church. So this makes it more official, and I think clearer for at least those who have the disability placard and not. So I think this will be very helpful. He has reported he has many individuals come to all the different programs that the Trinity Church offers on a daily and weekly basis that actually do have a placard and could use the proximity to the church right on Homer Street. So thank you for laying it out the way you have, and be where they were thinking of having a second accessible space.
Thank you, Jeannie. And you're right. So you can even see in this photo that we're showing right now, the accessible spaces are directly in front of a staircase. right? So some people would be able to use the staircase to get into the church. There are, I think there's 2 or 3 blue signs that direct people to the accessible path. Just out of view of this photo, the accessible path actually goes around the center street to the other side of the church and then into the church. But still, these are the closest on-street spaces, on-street parking spaces that exist. So they would be, the first 2 closest spaces would be the 2 accessible spaces. Any other comments from the public? Okay. So I would like to make a motion to approve the language.
Mitch has his hand.
Rich?
Yeah, I support this. I just wondered, you said the accessible pathway was just outside of the picture, and I guess I wondered why the accessible space might not be closer to the pathway, but I understand there's one already there.
Well, on this image, you could see there's parking available on Homer Street. There's not parking on Center Street. So the accessible spaces would be right in front of the church. If you could use the staircase to get in, that's great. If not, those signs guide you around to the accessible entrance.
Oh, so it's on Center Street where the pathway is. It's not on
On Center Street.
on the other side street. I got you. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I would like to make a motion then to approve the language of TPR 975 as shown on the slide 7 in the presentation, to add the second accessible space, create a 40-foot no parking zone, and then 40 feet of accessible space on the street. Any last comments? Okay, Danielle, can you please call the roll on this?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman, Mitch,
Aye.
Captain Devine.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 4-0 TPR 975.
Our next item is TC 1325, Adrian Ayala, traffic engineer, requesting to install stop signs in either direction. In either 2 directions or in all 4 directions at the intersection of Oakwood Road and Upland Road in Newtonville. This item came to us through our 311 system from a resident who noticed that there were no stop signs in any of the directions and requested, to either add 2 stop signs or 4 stop signs. And we took that language and docketed it here. Here's the location that we're talking about at the intersection of Oakwood Road and Upland Road. You can see that Oakwood Road is a dead end in one direction. Upland Road is more of the through street. Here's a photo of Oakwood Road looking eastbound at Upland. You can see that there's no stop signs in any direction. It's not very clear at all who has the right of way when you're approaching from different directions here. And then Oakwood Road looking westbound. Hold on.
We're getting Zoom bombed.
Okay, is that what's happening? Danielle, is there a way to kick out? Okay. Thank you for that. That's only the second time that's ever happened that I've seen. So I'm glad we have those controls. Thank you, Danielle.
I just wish it was a lot faster to remove people.
I couldn't tell what was happening. Thank you, Adrian, for letting. Then I was able to tell.
Thank you, Danielle.
All right. So here's where we were. This is a photo of Oakwood Road looking westbound. Again, you see, it's not very clear who is supposed to be stopping here when you're approaching the intersection. So when it comes to a four-way intersection like this, we do look for guidance from the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the MUTCD. And in this case, really what we're looking at, it says that stop signs should be used if our engineering judgment indicates that we have a less important road with a more major road, where that we can't be certain that the minor road would be stopping. We would not have a reasonable expectation of compliance with the law, with stopping for the stop sign. So that is really what we have here. And so that is our recommendation, is to make this into a two-way stop. We don't want to make it into a four-way stop where, and I think that probably Adrian can talk about that a little bit more, why we're picking a two-way a stop rather than a four-way stop. Our recommendation is for the two-way stop. We want to make sure that, that there will be better compliance when we have a two-way stop set up here. So in this photo, you could see our recommendation to add the stop on Oakwood Road eastbound, and then also on Oakwood Road in the westbound direction. And we do have the language to allow us to approve that. That would be TPR 976. And actually, I forgot to say one thing for the last item. So I'm just going to go back very quickly to the last item, where we just voted to add the accessible parking space. We do have a 20-day appeals period. So we just need to wait until after April 2nd to the 20 days expires. And then after April 2nd, our crew from DPW would be able to add the new signage. And that's the same case with this item as well. If this is approved, we would have a 20-day appeals period, and then the two new stop signs would be able to be added. I can open it up for public comment. Adrian, did you want to clarify anything at this point, or should we just move right to public comment?
I can respond to whatever questions or public comment that comes up.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. So at this point, if anyone from the public would like to speak on this, I see Daniel. Can you just say your name and your address, please? And you do need to unmute.
There we go. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So, hi, I'm Dan Kolodner. My address is 42 Oakwood Road. I'm the house with the green fence on the corner.
Right there.
So, I have no objection to stop signs, but I would vastly prefer 4 versus 2, mostly because the speed on Upland has increased a fair amount lately with people driving very fast down the hill. So I think all you're doing if you put 2 is you may direct traffic on Oakwood, but I don't think that's really an issue. I think it's people flying down Upland that to me is the issue. I am not the person who docketed this. I'm not the person who called 311. But if you're going to put stop signs anywhere, I would rather it be on all 4 versus 2.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Adrian, did you want to respond to that? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, sure. Typically, we don't use stop signs for traffic calming purposes. And typically 4-way stop signs are done at locations where there's a relatively equal balance of traffic on all approaches. In this case, with a dead-end road, Upland has vastly more through traffic, and it wouldn't need a set of warrants as outlined in the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, as David had mentioned. That being said, I can take a look at Upland speeding issues and collect data there. So we can put out a speed recorder for 48 hours that collects speed and traffic data to understand the issue, and that goes into our traffic calming prioritization process, where certain funding is allocated based on that prioritization.
So Adrian, I think it's pretty clearly stated in the MUTCD that stop signs are not for speeding, not for traffic calming. it's really for determining who has the right of way at intersections, right?
Hmm.
So that's why we never would use stop signs, even though people ask a lot, regularly. They ask to put stop signs in because of speeding vehicles on streets throughout, the city and the state. Um, they should never be used for slowing down traffic. I see Gail Deegan.
Hi, I'm Gail Deegan. I live on 240 Upland Road, and I am actually a neighbor of Dan's. So once he's on the corner and I'm on the first house going up Upland Road. And I've lived there 46 years. I don't know who suggested this change, but I'm in agreement with Dan that the problem does seem to be coming down Upland Road. And I think actually it's probably only one or two cars, but we know who the owners of them are. So I defer to, the traffic council's, rulings about what has to happen. But it isn't a busy intersection except for that one or two cars that come down there. So if there's a way we could communicate with you who we think those cars are, maybe that would be a way around this. So that's my feeling. And let me ask you, you said that you don't use stop signs to affect traffic speed. But you use them to address traffic flow.
Well, it's for right of way. Who has the right of way at that intersection?
Okay. And who has the right of way? The larger street?
In this case, we would put the stop signs on Oakwood Road
Yeah.
because it has a lower volume compared to
Yes.
They both are pretty low volume streets.
Yeah.
But Oakwood is lower, so there would be stop signs on the approaches from Oakwood Road. Do you have any idea when those two cars, like what time of day? Is there a particular time of day that if we're asking the police to have some kind of enforcement, they might have an idea of when to go
I
there?
would say going to school and coming home from school, and then, because it's not midday. I don't know, Dan, you would know better than me, but by and large, I've never seen any problem on that except for those cars.
Right. So I think what we're doing is we're trying to be proactive to stop a problem from happening where nobody thinks that if there happens to be two vehicles coming from separate, from Oakwood and from Upland at the same time, that at least one of them would be stopping and we would hopefully be preventing a crash by putting the stop signs in. Dan, did you have any thoughts of if we do ask for police enforcement, if there's only two cars, is there any sort of consistent pattern that we can ask the police?
Me?
There we go.
So, thank you. I wasn't muted. I agree with Gail. I do think it's a small number of cars, and it does tend to be around morning and early evening. And I think it's a little more than two, but it's definitely a small number that speed. But when they do speed down the hill,
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous, and there's a bunch of little kids now at the bottom of the hill where I see that as a potential problem. But I understand the traffic concern and why stop signs are used now. I did not realize that. So
What about a speed bump?
Yeah, so the something like a speed bump would be informed by our traffic calming process. So if the data shows that there is a large scale problem, that's where we can allocate funds towards.
I remember the speed bump discussions around Cabot, so I think I know the answer to that one already. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to be clear, we have a very robust traffic calming process in Newton. As you can imagine, many residents are requesting traffic calming on their streets. So we have a whole prioritization process that Adrian works on diligently. The last one that you were able to complete, Adrian, were there like 220 or 230, something like that, different locations in the city where residents requested traffic calming. It's a yearly process of looking at all different criteria and just calculating which ones come to the top of the list for the most important locations for traffic calming. Gail, did you have another comment? If you have a comment, if you can unmute, and you can take your hand down.
Okay. I see the real problem in that area being the intersection of Upland and Mill Street. And the reason that's a problem is there are no stop signs there, but people come very fast up down Mill Street. That's far more busy than Upland. And unfortunately, one of the neighbors on the corner has trees planted such that you almost have to go halfway out into Mill Street before you can see if there's anybody coming down Mill. So that's when you're coming down Upland. So if there was any place that I fear for my life, it's going across Upland and Mill.
I actually was taking a closer look at this today. Another neighbor had emailed me about that exact same concern regarding the hedges and bushes at the corner of Mill and Upland. Regarding the four-way stop signs, Mill is obviously a much heavier volume than Upland. So it would be a similar explanation as to why the four-way stop wouldn't be appropriate there. Regarding the hedges and the bushes there, typically the city has a pretty limited power in enforcing visibility setbacks there. There have been occasions where we're able to make the case that it is a critical safety concern. This location in particular is one that I'd like to have further discussions on internally within our department to see what can be done. Because I do agree that 3 out of the 4 corners are pretty severely obstructed by vegetation.
Private vegetation, Adrian, private hedges, privately owned.
Privately owned hedges.
Okay, so thank you for that that comment, Adrian, and we will continue to look at that and see if there's anything we could do. Sometimes it's I think it's urban forestry reaching out to the residents to make the request to prune their hedges. They have a whole process, so we can notify urban forestry. I think that's probably what will happen next. Okay, so then let's go back to this slide. So this is our recommendation to install these stop signs at Oakwood and Upland. I would like to make the motion to approve the 2 stop signs, Oakwood Road and Upland, eastbound and westbound. That would be TPR 976. It's the language shown on slide 15. And we do have a 20-day appeals period, like I said. Are there any last comments before we take a vote? Okay, Danielle, can you please call the roll on this?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Captain Devine.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 4-0, TPR 976.
Okay, and then so after April 2nd, assuming no one appeals, which I doubt would happen, then you'll see the new stop signs appearing. And thank you very much. So we're going to move on to the next item, which is TC 2324. No. Is this out of order? I think I have this out of order. All right, so this is the fourth item on the agenda. It's TC 2324. Isaac Prezant, City Transportation Engineer, requesting to restrict parking on both sides of Lowell Avenue, beginning at Page Road and heading 100 feet southerly to optimize crosswalk visibility and provide maneuvering around DPW's flex post installation. So this item we heard back in July 25th of last year, and it was held for a trial. This is the location on Lowell Avenue to the south of Page Road. This was the image. This was a photo that was taken last year that shows the flex posts that used to be in this location, which were hit regularly. Since that traffic council meeting, an RRFB has been installed, a rapid rectangular flashing beacon in this crosswalk. That's the next item that we'll get to. But we did discuss this item last year. We knew that the RRFB was going to be installed, and we were concerned about sight lines approaching the crosswalk. So at that meeting, Traffic Council voted to hold this item for a trial, and there was discussion among the neighbors and the members of Traffic Council. We ended up voting only to restrict parking for 100 feet on the east side, the northbound side of Lowell Avenue. So this is a view of what we have now. This was taken this month. So you could see we installed the no parking anytime sign. That was the Traffic Council trial, 100 feet south of the intersection. We now have the RRFB installed. And, you know, we were concerned about sight lines. That's why we wanted to restrict parking along this short section. And so for exactly this reason, when a car is parked there, you really have, you know, if you're driving, you have no view at all. That we actually have two pedestrians right behind this car that are trying to cross the street right here. You can't see it at all when you have a car parked there. So we really felt like this no parking zone was important. It was an important safety improvement that goes along with the RFB and the improved crosswalk. When a car is parked a little bit further back, the sight lines are a little bit better. You can see this person's head, right, when you're driving up here. But we also know if it was a child, you would not see a shorter person or a child trying to cross right there. And then, of course, when there is no car parked here, you know, beyond this no parking anytime zone, it's very clear view of the pedestrian trying to cross the street here. So that's why we felt strongly that the no parking zone was an important safety benefit, and that's why we did the trial. It's clear view with no cars parked there. Again, you could still park on the southbound side. You can park on the side streets, just not within this 100-foot area. So our recommendation is to make the trial permanent, to leave the conditions exactly how they are now. And so that is the presentation for this item. I'm going to open it up now for public comment. Yes, Martina Jackson.
Thank you. I live right across the street, and we made the case that the cars are that on our side, they have finished crossing the crosswalk. But I was wondering if it were at all possible to put signs or something warning people on the segment of Lowell Avenue between Watertown and Page, because there's a sign that says 25 miles an hour, but nothing that gives people the alert that that crosswalk is there. And I was wondering if you ever do that as a safety measure.
Well, I mean, in this case, we have the RRFB that's been installed. That was, you know, important safety benefit. We have the lights that flash. So we have flashing lights that are facing in both directions. So that I think acts as something that's better even than a sign. So when someone is crossing there and someone's driving, the driver is alerted that there's a pedestrian crossing there. Any other comments from the public? Oh. Any other comments from the public? Councilor Lucas.
Thank you. Tariq Lucas, Ward 2, City Councilor, 36 Central Ave, just a couple blocks away. If I could just follow up on what Ms. Jackson was saying, would it be possible to install a sign that says crosswalk approaching, or you are approaching a crosswalk or something? Because, you know, there is a hill there, as you know, and cars coming up that hill can't see the crosswalk, they can't see the RRFB, and a sign at some point, maybe as you're approaching that hill, would be helpful.
Thank you for that that comment. So Traffic Council does not vote. We have really no jurisdiction on putting signs like that up. It's not, we don't have, you know, a list of signs like that in our traffic and parking regulations. I think what you're asking is a question for our traffic superintendent, Nina, who's been here for, you know, 29 or 30 years. So I think that the best approach might be to either put the request in our 311 system, which would be automatically directed, you know, a request for a new sign at that location. It would be automatically directed to Nina. Nina could take a look at it and use her judgment about whether, you know, there's always a concern about having too many signs and sign clutter and, you know, people ignoring signs when, you know, so, but I think that that would be the best, that's probably the best approach. Nina gets requests every day for signs, multiple requests for different signs around the city. And she's really good at this point of making the determination. So that would be my recommendation. Do you agree with that, Adrian?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you could, Councilor Lucas, if you could clarify in which direction the visibility of the RFB is insufficient, and where you were thinking for the signage placement.
Coming from Watertown Street, and when you make that turn onto Lowell Ave to go south in the direction towards City Hall. If you're heading in that direction, and where the sign would go, I would.
I mean, if you were to make that turn, I think the RFB would be visible from that point, right after making the right turn from Watertown or from Walnut, you know, the Walnut intersection.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But we can definitely take a look at the sight lines and if make that recommendation.
Okay, yeah, I can follow up with Nina Wang, and I'll take some photos or whatever, not while I'm driving.
Right. That would be good. So Adrian, the direction that we're looking in is northbound in this image, but coming southbound, we do have, is it true that we have the two sets of flashing lights in the southbound direction as well?
Yes.
Okay. So probably when you're coming southbound, you'll be able to see either one or both sets of the flashing lights, but that's something that you can take a look at tomorrow just to double check.
Yep.
All right. Martina Jackson again. Did you have another comment or no? Are you able to unmute?
Now I can.
Okay, good.
So let me just reiterate what Councilor Lucas was trying to convey. If you're walking in that crosswalk, there is a hill from Watertown Street to that crosswalk. And even with the flashing light, I mean, I approach it very carefully because I know that crosswalk is there, but not everybody does. And one of the concerns that we had is that a lot of school children use that crosswalk. And so I think I would like to just reinforce that having a sign or something that warns people that the crosswalk is coming, I think would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments from the public? All right, so I would like to make a motion to approve the language that's shown on slide 23 to make the no parking 100 feet on the northbound side of Lowell Avenue permanent. So to prohibit parking from a point 100 feet south of Page Road to Page Road on the east side. That's no change from what the sign, the signage that's out there right now. It's just making no change, but permanently making a change in our official ordinances. Any last comments on my motion? Okay, then would you call the roll, please, Danielle?
Sure. Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Captain Devine.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 4-0, TPR 977.
That's 77.
And that was for TC 2324.
Right. Thank you. And then our last item is TC 1425. David Kosis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting to install an RFE on Lowell Avenue at Page Road. So that is the same intersection. That is simply making official the RFE that's already been installed. We need to take a vote to add this into our traffic and parking regulations in chapter 146 of our TPR. So that is I'd like to make that as a motion. This would be TPR 978 to approve the language. RFP, pedestrian activated RFP on Lowell Avenue, 10 feet south of Page Road. Any public comments on this? Councilor Lucas.
Thank you. I just want to say, yeah, this has been a excellent addition to the neighborhood for reasons that we said in the last item. And I hope the Traffic Council officially authorizes this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any, Mitch, did you, did anyone raise their hand?
Yeah, I had a question. So can you go back to the image of that crosswalk?
Mhm.
So I guess when I saw that, I was thinking, so there's different versions of that crosswalk. The ones on Parker Street, have something over the street, or did I miss that? Or is that a different?
Do you mean the hawk signal, the one that actually turns red?
Yeah, the one that turned. That's a different version, right?
Right. So that is not an RFP.
It's not an RFP.
It's called a hawk signal. I can't remember. Adrian, you probably remember exactly what the name is of the hawk signal. There's a more official name.
Yeah, it's called a pedestrian hybrid beacon now. But it's a full traffic control devices requiring a full stop on that red rather than a yield to pedestrians. And
yeah, right. We only have 4 of those in the whole city. 2 of them are on Parker Street, and one's on Beacon Street by Boston College, and one is in Woburn. But we have many, many RRFBs. We're continuing to add them as safety and benefits.
I mean, the only reason I was thinking of that is because, if there's a visibility coming down the hill, those Parker Street ones, which I'm more familiar with because I use that, you can see, several blocks away when it starts flashing, and as you say, it turns red. But again, if it's in, we'll see how it works.
Thank you. Okay, any last comments? All right, so I made the motion to approve TPR 978. Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Captain Devine.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 4-0 TPR 978.
All right, and that concludes our business for tonight. Our next traffic council meeting is on April 10th. We will not be having a traffic council meeting in May. We couldn't get a date. It's the city budget, all the city budget meetings. So we'll see some of you on April 10th and then again in June. Thank you for your participation. Have a good night.
Good night.